Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. This is Keshia Martin, your vibrational healing coach, and I am doing something very special today. I actually am having a guest. Um, with everything that's been going on with the energy shifts, Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, some of the questions I have, I receive was like, what is all that stuff, And I understand some details, but I also know there's more to the gambit. So I want to introduce Miss Lydia McCarty. She is a wonderful astrologer. She and I connected through a mutual friend. And the other day we had the unique experience of, of going through some of my astrology. And I just know that this stuff is profound. And I wanted to introduce Miss Lydia. Hey, Lydia, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. Doing wonderful. Um,
Good.
so, what drove you to start doing like astrology? What was it? What inspired you?
Well, I think like I got my first astrology book at like when I was in middle school. I remember being in B. Dalton, like that
Mhm.
old bookstore in the mall with my mom,
I
and I
haven't heard that
asked
name
her
in
to
a
buy it.
while.
I remember like that moment, like as clear as day. And I remember like shortly after that, like it piqued my interest. And shortly after that, I got this other book called Linda Goodman's Sun Signs, which is a classic astrology book. And I think I was like in the seventh or eighth grade when I got that. And like I could just see like the archetypes that she was explaining through the signs, like I could see them playing out in other people, just as she described. And it was such an
Mhm.
amazing moment. And like that sort of, that understanding that there's a connection between the stars and in the heavens and us, like was like the basis that sort of led me on a spiritual journey, um like overall. So eventually, like I guess it makes sense that I would come back to it. A few years ago I decided to study astrology seriously, and it was like
Mhm.
coming back home, really. I guess it was always meant to be.
Oh, I can definitely relate. I think
Uh-huh.
a lot of us on our spiritual path, like you have this understanding or knowing at an early age, right?
Uh-huh.
And then you're like, well, nobody believes me, so I guess I put that to bed. And then
I know,
when you come
I
back,
know. But you come back to it.
when you come
It's
right
like
back
you
to
have
it.
to.
Right, right.
Mhm.
A lot of folks think like astrology is, oh, it's like your zodiac signs and just determining your personality types. After going within, I know that there's a lot more to it. I'm by far not an astrologist.
Uh-huh.
um, but with you knowing the depths, like
Mhm.
with the not like what I've noticed is that the numbers don't lie. That there is a numerical back like calculation that goes into this.
Mhm.
What is your take with that?
Well, yeah, like the path, like astrology is um oh, hold on. Astrology is basically the study of um the study of the effects of the planets, like the study of the cycles of the planets
Hmm.
and how they relate to us. And okay. So let me just, it goes back to the law of correspondences, which states, as above, so below, as
Hmm.
within, so without, as within, as without, and as the universe, so the soul. And I don't know if you've heard that, this quotation, that we're all made from stardust. Have you ever heard of that?
I have.
Okay. So that's like a fact that our bodies are mostly made out of the remnants of stars. And so we see that everything in the universe is connected. Like we're all built from like these same building blocks. And so like the ancients noticed that there was a connection between the cycles of the planets and the life cycles of humans here on Earth. And so, just to be clear, like astrologers don't claim that the planets have any direct impact on us or that they impel us to do anything. Rather, what you can use the cycles of the planets to do is you can use that to predict and interpret the cycles that we go through, because we're going through the same cycles. Like the universe is holographic. Um, and we're all connected. We're all going through the same thing. So those cycles are really like a reflection of the cycles that we go through as human beings. And that's why there's such a connection between the cycles of the planets and the cycles that we go through as human beings. And not just human beings, like astrology applies to the planet, the things that like you can use astrology to predict the weather. Like it's everything. Everything is connected, and as above, so below. So like the planet Pluto is known in astrology to represent transformation, death, and rebirth. And it's like Pluto transits, which is when you have Pluto activating something in your chart, like they're known to be kind of difficult to go through. And so when, like as an astrologer, I see a lot of Pluto action going on in someone's chart, and we all go through Pluto transits at some point in our lives. It's not Pluto making someone act like that. It's really the Pluto archetype in them that's being pulled to the surface to act itself out. And so the planets, again, are the archetypes that live inside of all of us.
Okay.
So that's another reflection as well. And yes, it is actually tied into numerology, which I've studied a bit as well. But, all of those things are connected.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And they all play a part with how we operate, like you said. Like at the end of the day, we each have our own responsibility and decisions. But when you have energy things going on, like when our signs change up with astrology, like some of the stuff you're saying, I'm like, wow, I'm like mind blown. But like the other day when we connected, I'm like, wow, that's pretty dead on. That's exactly what's going on with me right now. So how does like this tie into like a retrograde, for example? Like, can you explain like what this Venus retrograde is all about? Because I know I always hear about like, I'll go through symptoms. Like for me personally, my spiritual path has always been like experiential. So like I experience these things, and then I feel like a blinded person, like trying to find. Let me ask Google, and I go searching for information. So I was going through these waves of energy, sleeping a lot, having headaches, and like some other issues, and I realized there's this Venus retrograde. So can you give some enlightenment on what Venus retrograde is and how it could possibly be affecting us?
So all the planets, and that includes in astrology the sun, and the moon, they're luminaries, but they are heavenly bodies that represent different parts of our psyche. And so all of the planets represent different aspects, different archetypes playing out inside of us. The sun is your identity, your sense of individuality. The moon is your internal self-image and like your unconscious emotional patterns. Mercury is how you think and communicate. And then we get to Venus, which is the archetype of love. It represents how you relate to other people and what you value.
Okay. So in one of those shifts, then that aspect of your life can have.
Oh, yeah. And I stopped at Venus, but there's also Mars. Like Venus is what you desire. Mars is her complement. Mars is how you go out and get it. And then there's Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. I could go on. So when a planet...
Let me ask you this. Is there more than one retrograde outside of the Venus one?
Oh, yes. All the planets retrograde, except for the sun and the moon. The sun and the moon never
retrograde. Wow.
turn
So there's I've
retrograde.
always heard of Mercury, and
Oh
now
yes,
there's
Mercury.
Venus one. So there's Jupiter retrograde and the other
Oh
ones
yes,
also.
Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto. They all turn Mercury retrograde at some point in the
Mhm.
year, but it's really the ones that are most important that we feel the most, like on a collective level, are going to be the Mercury, Venus, and Mars retrogrades. Those
Oh,
that's
okay.
what's called personal planets, and those all have to do with how we relate to outside objects and outside objects and like our environment. And
Okay.
so when a planet retrogrades, turns retrograde, like it means that it appears from our vantage point on Earth to be going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So, like planets never really turn backwards, but what happens is they're all rotating around the sun, right, including the Earth. So when Earth is about, and they all do it at different rates. So when the Earth is about to pass another planet, that planet appears to slow down and go backwards. It was kind of like
Mm-hmm.
you're driving in a car and you're about to pass another car. Like that car
Right.
is not going backwards, but as you're passing it, it appears that the car is going
Okay.
backwards. So that's what a
So
retrograde
like
is.
when you're in a train and it's
Yeah,
moving
like a
back.
train. A train will probably
Okay.
be a better example. Yeah, you can see it
Okay.
really clearly with the train. The planet is not going backwards. It's just that the Earth is passing it. And from our vantage point, it looks like that planet is retrograde. But astrology is all about, how our perspective from here on Earth. And so what retrograde means is, like when a planet is going direct, its energies are able to flow outwardly without being impeding. Like we move on to, if it goes straight out into
Okay.
the world. When a planet is retrograde, then that means that its energies, what it means, that's turned inwards, and we have to reassess, reevaluate, reconsider what that planet, what that planet's archetype really means to us.
Okay. So basically that movement, right?
Uh huh.
That movement of that planet moving in that polarity, that opposite direction,
Mm-hmm.
that is what creates that energetic shift to our planet, which would and
Yeah.
eventually just impact us. Where we is that why we have like the emotions, where maybe the arguments may happen more Mercury and the misunderstandings happen.
It's really like the planets don't make us do anything. It's
Mm-hmm.
sort of what I was saying earlier. Like they
Well,
present
not make us, but like
cycles.
affect us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but that's the connection. Like
Yeah.
the Venus energy is not able to express itself outwardly because collectively we're going inside to reevaluate those things
Okay.
that Venus means. And that's the energy shift. And Venus turning retrograde is just reflecting what's going on with us
Okay.
collectively. And Venus rules represents quite a few things. So Venus is it's a very important planet. It's a very important part of the psyche. It's Venus is known as the goddess of love. She's the part of the psyche that represents the pleasure principle and the law of attraction and like seeking like attracting like. And Venus represents the desire to socialize, the desire for love and companionship, for friendship and unity. Venus is what we look for in a love partner. It's how we relate to others socially and romantically. It rules our sense of beauty and style. It Venus represents who and what we value. It's our resources, including our money, finances. It's your talents and the talents that you have innately that you can use to make money. Those will be your resources.
Oh, so she's the goddess of making us look like
Yes,
attractive.
Venus rules wealth, it rules fine clothes, pleasure.
Great all day.
Um, and also Venus, like it talks about what we value and appreciate, but that also includes us. Like Venus is like a person's Venus and their chart and what's going on with that, that'll tell you how they feel about themselves. how much
Okay.
they value themselves, like their level of self-esteem. If someone's got some difficult aspects to their Venus or the second house in the chart, which is traditionally ruled by Venus, then there's going to be an issue with their self-esteem and how much they value themselves.
Okay.
And Venus rules beauty, it rules all forms of art, including music, and it rules the neck and the throat area. And Venus has rulership over women in particular.
Why is
So,
that?
well, Venus is one of the feminine archetypal planets, the moon being the other. Think of Venus in mythology. She was the goddess of beauty, and that's the goddess of beauty and expressing feelings, and that's that's distinctly feminine. That's a distinctly feminine trait. And
That's
so
true.
women in particular tend to identify very strongly with Venus. It's how we make ourselves look beautiful and how we make ourselves feel beautiful. And it has a lot to do with how we express our sexuality. And for men, it represents a lot of the same things in the chart, but a lot of men will project. What happens with a lot of men is they'll project their Venus energy onto the women in their lives. The ones that they date, like girlfriends, like the wife and the mother would be the moon. And that would be Venus as well to a certain extent, but Venus would be definitely like the women a man dates, not necessarily the ones he marries.
Okay.
Venus represents all of that. So Venus is a very important planet. And when Venus is retrograde, all of those things are repressed and turned inward. So, like you're talking about the energy shifts. Well, when Venus is retrograde, when Venus turns retrograde, we have to review, reassess, reconsider everything that those things mean to us. So, where we're usually social, we might not be as social. Where what we usually find beautiful, we might find our tastes changing during this period. Venus rules finances, so they're like Venus retrograde can bring up issues with money. Venus retrograde, because Venus rules relationships, Venus retrograde can bring problems in those relationships wherever, whatever she's doing in your individual chart, and everybody has their own birth chart, which is based on the date of their birth, the time of their birth, and the place of their birth. And that's like your own hero's journey. That's your birth chart is your personal mythology. It's your own hero's journey. And for everybody, Venus is going to be in a certain part of their chart, a certain area of their life acting this out. And she might be touching other planets and bringing other aspects of the psyche in one person's chart as opposed to another person's chart. So we'll all feel this, we're all experiencing this collectively, but for some people, depending on their chart, some people will feel it more strongly.
Right, because when you mentioned the food craving, I'm like, oh, there goes something else. Because the other day I was like, I'm buying this stuff, like cheese and some other stuff I don't eat. I've been craving it, and I'm like, I don't know why, but I just obey my body. Like whatever I feel I need to eat, I eat that, even though I can't eat healthy.
Venus retrograde periods, the reason we're going inward and reassessing and reevaluating is because Venus retrogrades are when our values change and transform and mature. Our values, what we find beautiful. Venus rules pleasurable food. Venus rules sweets, right?
Oh, the apple pie.
So, like, what we find Venus rules the taste bud. So, what we find to be tasty, like appetizing, that could change.
Yeah. Normally I'm a chocolate person, and now I'm like apple pie.
Yeah. All of and Venus goes retrograde about every 19 months. So
Okay.
it's not that common. And she turns retrograde for 6 weeks. And so during that period, we are, our taste, what we find beautiful, how we relate to other people, what we want in a relationship, what we value in a partner, all that is being changed for us. And Venus actually turned retrograde on October 5th. And she did that at 10 degrees in the sign of Scorpio. And I do want to get into a little later how the sign affects the expression of Venus retrograde, because that's going to show you the style. And Scorpio is a very intense sign. So I do want to, touch on that.
Right, because you looked at mine the other day. I'm not in a relationship, but
uh-huh.
You picked up on what I have mentioned to you. I've met I know who my twin flame is, so that we can talk about that if you like, because that was like, all right. And then you sent me something that you do, the numbers, which we can go over because I have no idea what that was.
The numbers? Wait,
yeah.
I think that was part of your chart. That was telling you what degree, like, your planets and points were at, I think.
Yeah, and I know, like, when you mentioned like relationships and the changes that the woman make, how Venus is affecting us, and does it just affect women or it affects men also?
It affects everybody, but women in particular are under the rulership of Venus and feel Venus strongly. Men tend to project the Venus onto the women in their lives, but they'll feel it too. They'll feel it.
Okay. I have another question. Would it affect like the womb? Like would it affect like our cycles and how they change or anything like that? Any on a physical level?
The moon is the planet that has more to do with governing a woman's cycle. The moon has to do with childbirth and whatnot. So
more babies here.
not necessarily Venus. Venus rules the throat, the neck. I think it rules the parathyroid, the chin, the cheeks. Like if Venus in a certain person's chart had ruled like a medical house, then that there might be something related to like health there. Like Venus rules the kidneys as well. Hard Venus aspects, kidneys and bladder, hard Venus aspects, could be problems with that. Venus is too much. Venus rules sweets. Like someone with diabetes and like Venus ruling their house of health, because diabetes will be related to Venus. That it could show up like that. But as far as the menstrual cycle, that's more the moon. But there are people who are born with Venus retrograde. If they're born during the 6 weeks that Venus turns retrograde every couple of years, and so what that means is their Venus energy in their chart all throughout their life, it's like they're in a retrograde period. Like that's a very important planet that they have to really work at and look at. The whole, values, relationships. That's something that they have to study deeply throughout their lives.
Is that something someone can contact you for, like to know if they were born under Venus retrograde? Because how would we know? like if somebody, could they inbox you or ask you?
Oh, absolutely. And my email is actually the Truest North at gmail.com. TheTruestNorth, the Truest North at gmail.com. And part of the services that I offer, I do chart readings where I cast your chart based on your date of birth, your time of birth, as exact as possible. Like the exact time of birth is really, really important. And the based on your place of birth. And so I cast the chart, I read it, I look at everything that's going on there, I synthesize it, I look at your the upcoming cycles for like the next 6 months, and that's how I do predictions. And of course, with that, I would give you a copy of your birth chart so you can see, whether you have Venus retrograde, whether you were born with Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, and what other upcoming retrogrades are going to be like really affecting you and hitting sensitive points in your chart.
Wow. That is like super powerful because there's so many folks that go through things. Like when I coach, as a vibrational healing coach, there's energy, and there's sometimes you meet someone. Oh, I meet them a lot. You meet someone who's going through all these changes and they can't figure out why they can't get better. Even if they're trying to eat healthy, they're trying to change their environment. They notice that there's certain patterns going on. And I think knowing that they could have been born under a Venus retrograde, or understanding how certain things are moving in their sign would be very beneficial. So that way maybe they can avoid certain conversations or have certain conversations to, I think that will go like really well together.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And if I also offer computerized charts where you get a copy of your chart, and then it's like a 20 to 30 page report where it tells you exactly where your placements are. It's not a one-on-one reading with me, but it will tell you where your placements are, and it'll give you like an interpretation of what that means. Okay. So I do want to let you know that I want to show you the glyph of Venus, and this is the glyph, the Venus glyph. You've probably all seen this before, but Venus, one of the meanings of this glyph is that it's like a mirror. Remember, Venus rules beauty, and Venus was very. Think back to mythology. Venus was very vain. She spent a lot of like looking at her reflection. She was known for that. And so during a Venus retrograde period, what we have to do is we have to hold up the mirror of Venus and look at ourselves, because we all say we want a healthy relationship and we want to value ourselves. We want good self-esteem, but we want a healthy relationship. But in order to do that, we have to have a good relationship with ourselves. So during Venus retrograde, we really have to hold up that mirror and go inside and look at, how do I value myself? How's my, self-esteem? How am I relating to other people? Are my relationships equal? That's really what Venus retrograde is for. And traditionally, it has not been regarded as a good time to start new Venus endeavors, such as like a new relationship. Not saying you can't date, but do be aware that your relationship skills and what you want in a relationship and what you value in another person, that's being transformed. So often like things that like romantic relationships that start doing a Venus retrograde, if you start off romantically, like it'll end up being a fling or like an affair, because after Venus turns direct, which is on November 16th, your opinion might change. What you want in a relationship might change.
Okay.
And actually, what Venus retrograde is notorious for is bringing past loves, like filling your consciousness with past loves and past relationships. And they often show back up, like in the physical form, like exes just calling you and popping up out of nowhere.
No, they don't need to come back.
It happens to a lot of people, though.
Oh, God.
What? It doesn't even have to be like somebody.
You sure it only comes 19 months?
Yeah, 19 months. Thank goodness. Who like we could deal with all year round. But like, we could just and not to make it all about me, but it's funny. Like when Venus turned retrograde, a guy that I went to grade school with got in contact with me online through social media. He was like, I used to have the biggest crush on you. Like, this was back when I was in like 6th, 7th grade. Like it was so random. So it can be little things like that. But yeah, often a lot of people have to deal with a past love coming back. And what they do is they act as a mirror to you. Venus retrograde can be a time like to look back at past relationships and say, how do I want to change? What is this person like? They're coming back. What are they reflecting to me? And how am I ready to grow beyond this?
Okay. Well, thank God a lot doesn't come back on my end. So I mean,
and not saying you can't meet people and socialize under Venus retrograde, but yeah, just be aware that you're changing those principles. What you want is changing. So wait until Venus goes direct before you commit to anything, because that's when those new desires and taste and values will be stabilized and manifest and made clear for you. It's also, Venus retrograde is also not generally considered a time to make huge purchases, because remember, Venus rules your finances. You might end up regretting it after Venus goes direct. Venus retrograde is a good time to like review your finances and get them in order.
Okay.
And you know what? Sometimes though, Venus can work to your advantage, because actually that can be a good time to find like a bargain if you're a good bargain hunter.
Okay.
Because during the Venus retrograde, like people tend to be more willing to part with something that they normally wouldn't, or like sell it at a lower price than they ordinarily would. So it can work to your advantage that way. But like often, like for the big purchases, we tell people to hold off on that until Venus turns direct, which again will be November 16th for us. And also, Venus rules contracts and gentlemen's agreements, and so you want to read the fine print of any contracts and agreements, any contracts that you're expected to sign or any agreements that you make. Yeah, you want to try to wait until Venus turns direct if you possibly can as well.
Okay. So basically, because we're still in that mode of transformation.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Venus, it's the relationship planet, and not just romantic relationships.
Right.
It can be a one-on-one business partnership as well, or a close friend, like a close friend from the past can pop up as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something, that's another way that Venus retrograde can manifest for you.
Awesome. That was some really good information. That was really helpful, because one of the things, well, I mentioned that already, as a vibrational healing coach, you see a lot of different things, and I'm more with ascension, and understanding the transitions that we're going through. And I know these retrogrades, when they happen, they can really wreak havoc on a sister like me. So for a little bit of insight on the things that I do, like I energy heal, so meaning I can see the energy on folks, and I can see what's going on in their emotional bodies as well as like their physical bodies. But then each time these things occur, I go through more receiving information and having to break through myself, because I'm shedding some light, and then I get downloaded more stuff, and it's always fascinating to me to know what to do, and then so hearing or reading like this, it was actually very helpful for me,
yeah.
I don't know if we have time, or if you have time, if you wanted to go over how we did our reading. Because for someone like me, I was like, okay, that now makes sense,
And then I don't know how far into it you want to go. I do have your chart right here.
All right, we can go ahead.
So I was talking with Keshia about Venus retrograde a few days ago. I think we talked, and she gave me her birth chart information, and I'm just gonna put it into the camera here. But this is what a natal chart looks like, a birth chart, and it's based on your date, time, and place of birth. So it's very specific to you. It's your own personal mythology, your own hero's journey. And so Venus retrograde, it turned retrograde October 5th in the sign of Scorpio. Now, Scorpio is it's a water sign, so it operates on the level of feelings. And Scorpio in particular is very primal. The Scorpio deals with the deepest, most intense emotions that we have, the ones that we bury because they're so intense we don't want to deal with them. Scorpio has a lot to do with our shadow side. It's the jealous side of us, the possessive side of us, the one that wants power and control relationship. And really, Scorpio has to, Scorpio was a sign that was built to face off all of this. It's the archetype of going, facing your fears in order to sort of dissolve the ego and to be able to join with another person without that ego like in between you. So that's why Scorpio, anybody familiar with astrology, that's why Scorpio is related to sex, because so the sex is termed, Scorpio is the sign of death and rebirth, and orgasms are the little death, right? That's what they're termed, because that's a point of total vulnerability when the ego melts between two people. And so that is why, so that's the type of energy that Scorpio is bringing to this Venus retrograde. So in particular, in our relationships, we're going to be dealing with a lot of primal emotions. We want passion. Well, we're going to be reassessing our relationships to see, are they passionate enough for us? And it's going to bring up those feelings, all those intense feelings. And so Keshia actually had, so I looked for where Venus turned retrograde in her chart, and she has Scorpio in the 7th house of partnerships. This is a house that Venus traditionally rules. The 7th house in our chart is the house of the other. It's all those things Venus represents. What, how we relate to another person and what we find attractive in another person. And it's our shadow selves, what we want in another person in order to sort of complete ourselves. And so Venus retrograde in the 7th house definitely has to do with relationships and another person coming to sort of reflect something to you. So I noticed that it was happening in her 7th house. I'm like, who is it? It doesn't always have to be romantic, but somebody you have a close relationship with. And retrograde, somebody from the past that you knew. So
yeah, because oh Lord. Okay, so when she said that to me, it was funny because what she didn't realize is that I was having these conversations with another girlfriend of mine, and I'm like, so my history is I've never really understood the whole jealousy thing, and I've usually dealt with that from mainly from women. I would get sometimes I hear it intuitively, and then I'm like, oh God, I gotta. And for the longest, for years, I never trusted it, so I'd be the dummy. And they can get messed up in the friendship because I'm like, no, they're not like that. And then boom, something happens, and then, so I never really got it. Now in relationships with a guy, my intuition always ruled. And then if I say something, they say, nah. And then, how things go with that. So I never really felt like I was ever really jealous. But recently, I'm not even in a relationship, nor am I dating somebody.
Yeah.
But I came in contact with who I know is the flame, and
now that's Scorpio energy, my twin flame. I want to join with you. Somebody that brings up that kind of energy in you.
Oh God! Every little thing. If he even breathes wrong, I was like, coming home, I don't know what I don't know what's doing this to me. I don't know. Da, da, da. I was just like, I don't even want to be bothered. See, I'm starting to get like it all over again. I don't even want to be bothered with this twin flame thing. I think I just wanted to end all of that. So, but when you told me that, I was like, okay, because just because you meet your twin flame doesn't mean y'all supposed to have something. That's something I've come to terms with and I've accepted, you know? And so it's not something I look for. But to know, as a vibrational healing coach, I also know that when something like that occurs and it triggers me, there's something inside of me I need to
hold up the mirror. He is a mirror to you.
Oh, yeah. Something like this. I want to hit my head on the table. So after we worked, I said, okay, do I want to wait till like the 16th and go drag myself through more rigmarole and get all tight?
Wait, the 16th of what?
November.
Oh, okay. You were thinking of that when I told you about it.
Girl, what you told me sat in my head. So I said, I already know how this can go. But whether it's from working on myself or working with others, and let's just work on me so that way we get rid of this thing. And what actually occurred, I haven't really been sleeping well. So first I had a whole bunch of headaches, you know, and that's what made me realize there's this Venus retrograde. And so it was very accurate in regards to speaking up, because one of my things is, because I go through so many woo-woo experiences, I've had a hesitation. First, it was a straight out fear, but I've had a hesitation of being able to speak my truth with what I'm doing, you know. And then two, when you said that that it was falling in the relationship part, I said, that's why I keep getting upset over nothing. Because like logically, there's no reason for me to work myself up over anything. Like, like there's technically nothing there. But if they say as above, so below, and what the inside reflects what the outside is. If I'm receiving jealousy on the outside, regardless what sex is giving it to me, there must be something within me that might be attracting it. So I've started doing my own meditation. So I've actually came up with 4 meditations. I put it on my podcast and I shared it in a couple groups, and I'm doing better now. I'm actually doing better now. So I'm not getting triggered.
Good.
I'm not getting. So you helped a lot. So at least one, it helped me identify what's wrong, and now 2, instead of running from it and just surrendering, like, oh, I have to deal with this for the rest of my life, I actually just took action to help out with that. So I think that's a great mix, people. If you're reading, I think you should definitely get a chart. And then if you're not sure how to fix it, then you got to come talk to Keshia. So that we can help you through that blend. So there was something else you wanted to bring up. I can feel it.
So I did want to say, there were a few more things. So for those already in a relationship, because Scorpio is such, because Venus wants us to reassess, review our relationships and our interpersonal skills. And also because Scorpio is such a intense sign, and it deals with those, us having to face those ugly parts of our psyche that we don't want to. Those people that are already in relationships, anything that has been pushed down, like that you guys are ignoring, or that you've tried to skate over, that's gonna come up and it's gonna have to be dealt with. So Venus retrograde, and especially this one, it's known for like breakups, and they're not always final, because once Venus goes direct, sometimes people do get back together, but it is a time where, more fights could happen in the relationship. And especially watch for the date of October 31st, Halloween, because Venus is going to be opposing. So that's called a stressful 180-degree aspects. Aspects are how planets communicate with each other. So it's really different parts of the psyche communicating with each other. October 31st, Venus is going to be making an opposition, a stressful aspect to Uranus. And Uranus is the planet of the unexpected and rebellion. And Venus-Uranus contacts can often lead to a breakup, like that results from a sudden flare-up. It's out of the blue.
Like a hemorrhoid.
And this might not just be a romantic relationship. It could be like a blow-up argument with a friend, or like a disagreement with a business partner. It could be some sudden change in your taste, like you want to totally overhaul your look. It could be something to do with your finances. Just proceed with caution. You don't want to make any brash decisions, although, when Venus is opposing Uranus is very brash and out of the blue. That can sometimes be hard, but just, be warned.
Okay. Good stuff.
Yeah. And I did want to say, astrology is so amazing. You could see the archetypes playing out. So remember I said that Venus represents women, and Scorpio is a very sexual sign. It has to do with power, jealousy, control. So to the lead up, what we call the shadow period, which is like the lead up to a planet turning retrograde, that was when the Kavanaugh controversy came out. Right? That's when the trial was going on. That was the issues of women, Venus, and sex and power. And then on October 5th, the day that it went retrograde, the day that Venus turned retrograde, we saw that the FBI said they didn't have any evidence, which is also, that's like a Venus thing as well. Venus also has to do with the court system and like evidence and balance and justice. Yes, but on October 5th, you saw that they were going to go ahead with the vote to confirm, and you saw like the rage of women, not all women, but a lot of women, over the issue of sex. So that's Venus retrograde in Scorpio. So yeah, it just it is, sometimes astrology can be like so literal and like so right in front of our faces. But yeah,
that's true, because I have something I've been receiving, and I don't know who. I plugged in the information. This is way before I met you, of course. I plugged in all my information, and anytime I'm going through a transition, I get this message, and I'm like, oh, let me read it. And I'm like, that isn't dead on with whatever I'm dealing with. And I'm like, okay, so you're right. The numbers and stuff don't lie. And then, but having someone to actually speak to, like,
yeah,
like after talking today, I know I'm gonna want to call you after. I'm like, well, maybe I'm not 100% over this whole thing yet.
Well, Venus, like you'll be experiencing this stuff through the end of until Venus turns direct. Like we're going to be focusing on this stuff. So that's November 16th. So you got a little while. And even then, like November 16th, you can proceed with a better understanding of what you want. It might be to date this guy. Sometimes, people exit our lives once Venus turns direct, but you'll have a better understanding of what you want at that time. And once Venus leaves its shadow, what's called the shadow period, like there's a shadow period as Venus creeps up to go on retrograde, and then there's a shadow period after it leaves until it passes the point at which it first went retrograde. So on December 17th, that's going to happen, and we are like really in the clear from then on. Our new value system and whatnot, that's going to be established. And just so you know, I looked at your chart, and Venus in your chart, so Venus rules the signs of Taurus and Libra, and in your chart, it has some rulership, co-rulership of the first house, which has to do with the head, and the sixth house, which has to do with the health. So the headaches, the fact that it's headache.
Yeah, 'cause the headaches were it's just it was a rough time. It was like 2 weeks of like straight. That's what I
Mhm.
don't know. It felt like 2 weeks.
So that
Um,
it would manifest like medical, physical symptoms in you. It's
okay.
not surprising because both of
And
those houses have to do with the body.
what I also found to help me release some of the headaches is because like the other day I felt really tired and I actually had slept the night before, but I was tired.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that energetically, so I had this weird idea to go buy something.
Mm-hmm.
It was a juicer, and I was like, I don't even think I'm gonna use it.
Oh yeah. And when was
Because
this?
I think Tuesday or
Okay. So yeah,
Thursday. It was recently. Yeah.
that's one of those big purchases. But
Okay.
depending on how expensive it is, it might not.
It was less than $100,
Oh,
but
okay. Okay.
yes, it wasn't too big. I think it was like
Uh-huh.
60 something. But
Yeah.
either or, it was like it's still an investment because it's not just an investment with money, it's also time, because now I got to spend time to figure out what to put in the juicer that my body
Time
needs.
cleaning it.
And cleaning it. That was the reason that's why I didn't want to get it because I was like, that looks like a lot of work cleaning that.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if I wanted to be bothered with it.
Mm-hmm.
And but the funny thing is, so then I was started getting extremely drained.
Mm-hmm.
And I was laying in the bed, and then this pressure to go buy a juicer, which doesn't make any financial sense to go buy, or
Mm-hmm.
any logical sense. But after I purchased it, my energy went from 0 to 100, and then so what I've been finding for me, what I've been finding energetically, when things affect the physical body, there's probably something you need to do,
Yeah.
whether it's like an apology or you need to take action of an
Oh
aspect in
my
your
God.
life.
Yeah.
For it to free you. And I've noticed like I'll get jammed up in my neck and in my head a lot if I'm not doing something I need to get done,
Uh-huh.
whether it could be simple, paying bills, calling a friend, um, resting. There's just something your body is needing energetically. And yeah, oh, I must be. So when that
You're
happens now,
resonating with me.
yeah, I am. When that happens, I'm like, okay, I guess it doesn't make any logical sense for me to do this today. I haven't spoken to this person in God knows how long, but this is what needs to be done. And once that happens, it's like other aspects of your life free up.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've noticed.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
in terms of energy, it doesn't see the objects the way we see it.
No. No. Do you mean by that it doesn't it's unbiased in
It
a way?
physically doesn't see it.
Yeah, it
Like
physically
so,
doesn't see it.
so as
It's all spirit.
exactly. So as above, so below, as out
Uh-huh.
there is seen with seen out here.
Uh-huh.
Um, so when we deal with emotional things or mental things that are holding us up energetically in our lives, it doesn't matter if it's something like this or the laptop in front of you or a tree. It doesn't see these objects.
Mm-hmm.
All it sees is the energy that's blocking it. So we have a tendency to think that because something is um, romantically or friendshiply involved, it's not going to affect our finances. That's a myth.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is energy.
It's all connected.
It's not going to see it. So it's all
Yeah.
going to be connected. And so so if we're dealing with that aspect
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't make sense to do it, it's probably the thing you actually need to do
Mm-hmm.
to help clear you, so that way you can prosper, manifest things more effectively in other areas of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And working with people, that's one of the hardest things for us to do
Mm-hmm.
because some of the stories have been so tied in to our psyche that it's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now that it's a thing, it's almost like a security blanket. Like, well, if I let it go, am I going to be okay? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been married to this story for so long. My parents left me.
Mm-hmm.
This job, I lost the job, and my whole life went this way. Um, and we stayed married to it. And
Yeah. People can
But
stay married to an illness.
yeah, I've been sick all my life. I don't know how to not be sick anymore.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then there's times like I do a clearing with someone and I call them back and I'm like, "How are you doing?" And they're like, "I'm good, but I just have this feeling it's gonna come back." And I'm like, "Don't have that feeling. Like, let it go." Like that whole marriage of being like, or they don't feel worthy enough of
Yeah.
of something better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when I see these things, that's why I was like, okay, this is, and then speaking to you, I was like, all right, this actually puts those two pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it very valuable because if you know, like you already know what you're dealing with in your emotional life. And some of us, we've been so culturally trained to not think that something is really a thing for us to bother us, but it's that one little thing that is emotionally or energetically affecting us. So like we may have been taught to, especially as women, we get
Yeah.
this thing that you have to be strong, you have to be,
I know.
like no, that don't sweat the small stuff, blah 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 blah. And then we have this way of like brushing it this way, but then somewhere we didn't. It must have got caught on the fingertip.
Yeah.
And when we do this, sometimes it's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably just better to be like, you actually, that actually hurt me, that bothered me.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that will help us more with these retrogrades.
Mm-hmm. Let it out. Let
Let
it
it
out.
out.
And really,
Yeah.
retrograde periods are, we have to go in and clean out the gunk, the psychic gunk, right? Like,
Hmm.
just like you said, like we would have, if we were proficient at, just letting our feelings out, just saying what we wanted to, and crying when we wanted to, and not being afraid to say, "You hurt my,"
You,
well, not, but that's,
my
oh,
feelings
that's
got
so
hurt.
beautiful, or yeah, my feelings are hurt, or anything. Like, we wouldn't have so much work to do in these retrograde periods, but that's really what they're for, cleaning out the gunk.
Right. And then even if someone is good at telling someone that hey, my feelings are hurt, which a lot of women aren't, honestly, because that one time they did it, they got slapped literally, and then they got hurt from that, and now a lot of it comes out through anger, or they
Hmm.
come out with like a backlash.
Yeah.
But even if someone is effective at saying it, one of the next things that we are that happens, which I think happens more in these retrogrades with the relationships, is if that person's not there with receiving
Hmm.
you telling them that you hurt them,
Hmm.
that how we respond to that person,
Yeah.
because one or two things can happen. You can either one create a mission to, or you don't. I don't want to say mission. That's too extra, but you want to create the urgency in that person for them to understand how they hurt you. You
Hmm.
know, and then they're not receiving it, so then they keep going through this stuff. I said, or you cut them off, and then that creates a block too, because energetically you're not really ready to have cut that person off.
Hmm.
So
And that's why, people can appear from the past if there wasn't closure there during a retrograde, Venus
right.
retrograde. Yeah. If there
Oh,
was
because
not,
then
they appear so you can get closure,
closure. Okay.
to what has not been resolved emotionally.
Right. For us to actually heal ourselves, not necessarily
Hmm.
about them, but it's just something for yourself.
Hmm.
So in some cases, allow the person, but maybe have the idea that you're doing this for your own self-care.
Yeah. And on a higher level, like, we tend to, like, most humans, um, use the Venus principle, like, like, with the belief that, the other person is separate from you, but like, Venus really operates best on a higher spiritual level, where we recognize that, everything is one, everything is connected, and this person is here, like, they are a mirror of me. They're like, they're a reflection of me, and Venus is about bringing that shadow self into
Oh,
the known self, and becoming whole, um in the process,
okay.
learning what you need to learn and recognizing the parts of yourself that they're presenting, that they're reflecting to you.
Right.
You know, they're your reflection, being able to understand that and then bring the two halves together into a whole. Like oneness, Venus is about unity, and oneness is really like her highest expression. But most of us are not quite there, so we have these Venus retrograde periods. Well, we have to work.
These changes.
Work at it. And this is always fun, like looking at your last Venus retrograde and what was going on in your life then. Because they tend to build on each other, all the Venus retrogrades that we go through.
So that's something you can do too, with like a growth analysis.
The last Venus retrograde was from March 4th to April 15th, 2017. So that was last year. And people should think about what was going on in their lives at that time related to Venus. I know, I thought back.
I'm gonna have to look back.
I wasn't even paying attention to, I had stepped back from astrology and I wasn't paying attention to the transits at that time, but there was definitely some Venus stuff that was going on that sort of shocked me. And I look at where I am today, and it's at this Venus retrograde, and like the growth that I've had has been built off of that period.
Okay, and that was
I don't know if you can remember,
of last year?
March 4th to April 15th of last year, 2017. Where were you? What was going on?
Wow, I'm gonna put it in the comments. Yeah,
then it was in the sign of Aries and late Pisces. So for you, Keshia, that was actually happening in your most of it was happening in your first house of self, like your body.
That makes sense.
I don't know if you went through any like changes in your appearance, or you know, the body can be, you know, how you, it's on that relationship axis. So maybe there was a change in how you what you wanted in relationships, or how you related to other people. Not sure what was going
I don't know. I don't have everything. I have to look back at it.
Look back. Last spring, 2017, not 2008.
I was meeting a bunch of Geminis.
Are they still around?
Yeah, I mean, we can get along with friends.
Okay. So that changed something.
That five, but it was only two. But since each of them have, you know,
they have dual.
Had a relative. Yeah, it was just a lot. I was like, why? I was like, oh, one day I looked around and it was all these Geminis. I'm like, I wait a minute. So that's about the only thing I can really, right off the top of my mind, think about. But no, they cool people. So we can get along. One thing I like about them is that they kind of move off of things, and you can still communicate, and they have a strong sense of value, and they know how to. So I don't like hate Geminis. I don't care what people think anymore. But I don't care. The Geminis, I know I want to date one. I'm done with that idea.
Well, always remember that, you know, that's the sun sign, but
I'm a sun sign too. So
that means their sun was in Gemini when they were born. But the more important planets for like relationships between people are actually the moon placement, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn. And then you look at the 1st and 7th house. So you can't base a relationship with somebody off just the sun sign. Yeah. Although Gemini suns do have,
they don't have 4
certain traits. They are very dual nature. They can hold 2 different opinions at once.
Yes.
Yeah. They are the tricksters of the zodiac, mentally very quick. Very smart.
Very intelligent.
Very
intelligent beings.
Good communicators.
Yes.
Gemini has a gift with words.
They're strong. They're very giving.
Creative.
Yeah. And they can also be very compassionate. Like they have a sense of like understanding. Like they can be, that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing
Uh-huh.
going on. But even in their heckle, they have a way of still being compassionate, which is weird. But yeah, and I've had so it wasn't like just like a dating thing. Like I had family members, male, female, and friends. It was just a bunch of Geminis last.
Uh-huh.
I was like, okay, I don't know what the universe is trying to show me, but I think I'm over this lesson now.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
still cool. We can talk, and which is good. They all sent me little messages after my little Facebook post recently. They're like, very funny. Very
That's
funny, Miss
funny.
Martin. Yeah, very funny. So that was good. So how does someone get a hold of you? I know you've been working on your site and getting things together. I think this is very valuable if you're watching this, if you want to learn more about your sign. I think it really puts the pieces together. If you've been following my stuff, you've probably seen me been promoting a healing tools package. So there's so what I've created also, Lydia, is this healing tools. I did it a while ago, but for some folks like myself, they are going through the ascension, and when these retrogrades happen, not only do they have physical symptoms like they get the headaches and stuff like that, but they might also go through these energetic lows and highs, and they're not knowing how to deal with them. So it's a little course package that I have put together that kind of gives them some tools, things that's probably in their house already, and then actually using them to help them through this energetic shift. So that way they're not so quickly triggered to like text a person or cancel their business plans.
Yeah.
Because making
Don't
quick
text
business.
them, girl.
Don't text emotions. Leave it alone. Put the phone down. Let the retrograde pass, because it's quick for us women, especially like if you're like, okay, because men, they can focus on one thing, and that's another course. But so I want to have you back on, definitely.
Okay.
To talk about some of like that stuff.
Well, we've got another big transit coming up next week, next month, early November. Jupiter, the planet of expansion, opportunity, faith, growth. It's going to be going into its home sign of Sagittarius. I think on early November.
I'm happy with that one.
Yeah. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be uploading videos on a YouTube channel at the Truest North. That's going to be my YouTube handle there. Yeah, and I'm going to be uploading this interview as well onto there. Okay. So the Truest North, and I'm going to be uploading like regular content from now on. So in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be uploading a video on Jupiter and Sagittarius, and then I'm going to go over how it affects each sign. And just a word to the wise, like a lot of people read horoscopes from the point of view of their sun sign, which is what only thing most people know. But really, like when you listen to that stuff to figure out how it's going to affect you in particular, you should read the sun, the moon, and the rising sign, especially. Okay. So for Keshia, for you, that would be, you have sun and moon in Leo and then rising in Aries. So you will read Leo and Aries both to see like how this is.
You know what? I had something that's bothering me too. Can you pull my sign back up? There's a symbol I've always drawn. And I want to know which sign that is. Can you, it looks like a bird. Go up move it over and up.
Oh, Uranus?
Is that it? Not that one, down.
That's Pluto. Venus?
It's on the other side.
Oh.
Down, or lift your paper up. Yeah, that red one. No.
That?
Pull it back a little bit. All right. It's the 1, 2, 3, the third one on the left where on a clock, the 9 would be.
This?
No, it's on the circular part.
Okay. Show me where
Opposite side. The opposite side.
this.
One down. That. What
Oh,
is that?
that's the symbol for Aries. Although people do use that to draw a bird, but that's your rising sign. Air and rising sign rules your body and like your everyday personality. And so Aries is the first sign, and it's symbolized by the ram. And so those are the ram's horns right there. That's what the symbol
Oh.
of Aries symbolizes, which it uses to butt past anything in its way. Aries is a pioneer, and it just goes around just like headbutting everyone out the way, so it can do what it wants.
So interesting, because I
Yeah.
always draw symbols, and I've always there's times I just doodle that. I just
Oh,
thought I was
okay.
drawing a
Some
bird.
people do draw birds that way.
Yeah,
I've drawn
I
them that
did.
way
I
before.
still
But
do.
astrologically, that's the symbol for Aries, the first sign, the first fire sign too.
It looks like we have Yolanda said that she definitely needs you to do her chart also. So,
Hey, girl.
yeah, Yolanda's like, you got to do my
You
chart.
see what's going on in there.
Oh yeah, we gotta get some
Mm.
chart readings, and then if you're dealing with some of those challenges, you can get the healing tools package to help alleviate some of your physical symptoms or emotional symptoms that are going on.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
my site it's under construction, though it's technically up. Um, it's the Truest North .wixsite.com, and
Mm-hmm.
you can go there and see my services,
Okay.
and it tells you the different types of readings that I offer, and then the different types of computerized reports at the bottom. And if you
And this is
have
on
any,
your site.
this is on my site. It's up, but we're still working on it. But you can see the
It looks
services.
great, by the way. So,
Thank you.
Mr.
And
TruestNorth.com.
the truestnorth.wix site, WIXSITE.com. It
Okay.
will be the truestnorth.com eventually once they connect my domain name to
But
it.
then we'll wait till it's all together then. So like,
Yeah, and
because this is gonna last a while. It's gonna be up. So when you
yeah,
have your actual site, we'll actually place that.
yeah. And that
Um,
should be next week. I should be able to send that to you next week. And remember, guys, my email is thetruestnorth.com, thetruestnorth@gmail.com. My IG is at the Truest North. So you can contact me through those avenues as well. And we can, just talk directly.
exactly. So Lydia, thank you so much for joining me this Saturday. It's been
You're
a
so welcome.
blessing. And I'm very honored to be able to communicate this information to folks. Guys, if you guys have been going through things, a lot of us have been trained to say, I can just have a drink or do whatever and it's going to be over with and I'll be fine. But then a year later, maybe you're still not in that marriage that you like. You're not in a relationship that you want to have. Or you are married in a relationship, but you're not fully happy. That's what I wanted to ask you about. If you picked up anything about relationships in regards to like people that were actually married and dealing with things. But or if it may be the career choice that you're looking for, whatever aspect that you're on, it's important for you to know that there's more to it.
Mm-hmm.
That going to it's not to change like whatever you're doing currently. I mean, some
Yes,
changes
yes, yes.
might have some changes might have to be done, but that's your call.
Yeah, but a healthy, strong relationship will survive a Venus retrograde.
Okay, good.
If it's a healthy relationship, like it'll bring up issues, but if it's a healthy relationship, it'll survive that, and you'll address it and move past it. So
Okay, good.
yeah,
Yeah, so
it's
just
just
allow.
the stuff that's on shaky ground.
Okay, and if stuff is on shaky ground and they're in a marriage,
It'll bring up those issues, and they'll have to be dealt with.
okay.
Yeah.
So allow
Sometimes
them to talk
depending
about it.
on the strength of what's going on in the charts of the two people, and like how it like really depends on how healthy the relationship is and how healthy the individuals are, and where they're at. Where that's what whether the relation whether that's what decides whether the relationship will continue or whether it will end. And sometimes during the Venus retrograde, people can decide to go their separate ways. But like a Venus retrograde is, just because you're in a relationship and you're going through Venus retrograde doesn't mean you're going to break up. It'll just bring up issues that need to be dealt with, and a healthy relationship will survive.
Right.
People marry for 50 or whatever years, 30, 40, 50 years. They go through Venus retrogrades every 2 years, just like the rest of us. So.
Okay. So, so ladies and gents, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, well, I wouldn't make, I would, don't leave the old hag yet. Okay? He might be a keeper. He might be good for some more plowing. All right, ladies. So don't be quick to give up on your relationships. It does take time. It does take work, and it takes both actually working together on it and communicating effectively on what it is that they want, and realizing the dynamics within yourself. So anytime you're going through a personal growth process, it doesn't mean you have to now switch out your husband or switch out your wife.
No. And just because you meet somebody during a Venus retrograde that you're interested in, it doesn't mean that they're gonna disappear or whatever.
No.
Like, you never get the chance to date them. I'm just saying, don't hop into bed with them.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Just wait until Venus turns direct November 16th, when your values are straightened out and clear to you, what you want is clear to you, and then you'll know whether to proceed or not.
Right. And then this brought up another topic, which we won't have today, but the thing is, but one of the things like that you said, that, what was I going to say? With that, when you meet this person during this retrograde, there might be a reflection of what you need to learn in that moment. And it's important that you still have that insightful communication clearness with your husband or your wife. Because it doesn't mean you have to hop into bed with the person or carry on any intimate conversations, because now that's a whole other level. But maybe that person is being presented in your life for you to heal an aspect within yourself.
Yes.
So no need to step out emotionally or physically. It's just a matter of being in tune of what you need to learn from this person. So being respectful of your current commitments and relationships, and being understanding of what you need to learn with this person that's coming into your life, and allowing them to, I guess, exit. So that's one thing. And we'll probably have a relationship conversation about that, because I think a lot of times folks feel as though that, especially they married young, they feel as though they need to be the set way, and then they end up in this paradigm of dependency in the relationship, and then they never learn how to have that independence and the spiritual growth. They feel as though they have to leave this mate to actually have that, and that's not necessarily true.
No,
not at all. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Really great. I can't wait for us to reconnect again. But peoples, if you are dealing with some of the challenges and you don't know exactly how to go through it, you can visit my site and get the Healing Tools package. I'll put the link below, to get definitely get a reading and understand the basis, because when I understood exactly what was going on with me, I was able to put certain things in the mix. So if you get a reading with her and you're not exactly how to put it in the mix, hit me up. Because you don't have to struggle through this whole thing. There's a way for you not to lose 6 weeks of your life before the next Mercury retrograde. And I know there's some of there's some of you guys that you have the anxiety of these retrogrades getting ready to hit. and you might be living in your, like, I just have to live in a bubble. I can't do certain things, but that's not the way you have to do it. You can completely live your life, still be successful. And yeah, you might have hiccups in your relationships, but it's all good. Because you have two people right here that can help you find the 411 personally with you, because Miss Lydia is on point with her stuff. And I hope you guys find it well, and I will see you all the next time. Bye, Lydia.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. I'll see you guys. Let me see.